Why is God offended at homosexuality? How would you explain it to non-believers? I think you know me well enough now to know that when I answer a question, I never actually start by answering the question, but I pose my own question, which is a great tactic sometimes to use. But actually I do think we need to pose our own question, and that is, why do we feel the need to be drawn into a very aggressive social issue that has its own driving force and almost pushes us towards a certain direction? Homosexuality is an issue amongst many issues in the world. Just because people have decided to make it the primary issue does not mean that it must become the primary issue. God's issue with homosexuality is going to be the same issue he has with anything that takes us away from a life of, as I said earlier, sanctification and holiness. So if you think of, let's not discuss whether it's right or wrong to be homosexual. I think we've done that to death. We were created as we believe in our church, and we believe scripturally. We were created in the image and likeness of God. We were created as man and woman with the ability and the blessing of being able to procreate. That was part of the dynamic, and that is obviously what we were created to live within that model. So away from that then, whether we're speaking about homosexuality or heterosexuality, I think what we need to focus on is holiness and righteousness. Now, if we believe in the holiness of matrimony, of marriage, as defined by us, and as defined by all of the traditional Christian churches, and as defined by most of the world's faiths, marriage is between man and woman. For us, it is a sacramental link, a sacramental union. For everybody else, it is some kind of important intrinsic union as well. So within that meaning, although there is a secular understanding of marriage, that determines legal standing in terms of property ownership, in terms of civil status. That is a civil, legal understanding. But from an ecclesial understanding, as far as we're concerned, marriage is still between man and woman, which means that is the only sacred and godly relationship that can be within that context. Any other relationship outside of that context, whether it's homosexual or heterosexual, is therefore not falling within the bound of holiness and righteousness. So what we need to do, and I've said this time and time again, we need to redefine the battlefield, rather than keep walking into battles that we're constantly going to lose because we're playing on somebody else's definitions. So own the argument, redefine it as one of holiness. Because the minute you speak about homosexuality or heterosexuality, you get dragged into an equalities issue. And of course, then the minute you say no, then you're being accused of being a bigot, and you're being accused of supporting inequality. So this is not an equality issue. This is an issue of our understanding of a life of holiness. And on that basis, in that context, holiness is that which is lived within a marital relationship for the glory of God, in our context as Christians, brought together through the sacrament in which the church gives us to each other as the agent of God on earth. Does that make sense?